There it is. The Sony TCD-D3 portable DAT recorder that I've talked about in other videos. And this one's got some issues. This one's had issues for a long time, and I actually dealt with the issues forever. To make it work, well, I've even taken the screws out of this thing already because I could open it up and kind of get a screwdriver in and kind of play around with it to make the mechanism work, because it would stick. Today, I'm thinking maybe today is the day where I can actually get into this thing and get it going. Plug on the bottom here. DC power for a microphone. So here's the bottom of the unit, and again, I've never opened one of these units up, so this is new for me too. This is going to be a fun one because everything is microscopic on this thing. But I kind of want to get at the mechanism because I want to work through the mechanism. It seems to be a mechanical problem, so I want to kind of get the mechanism open so I can see. Oh, look at that. That was already open. Maybe that's part of the problem. That connector wasn't connected. Let's just attach that connector, and this was open, right? See this connector here? This was open. So let's just put that connector back together, and we'll try this thing, because maybe that's all that's wrong with it. I haven't used this thing in years and years, so I used to use it a fair bit for recording stuff and copying tapes and so we're just going to put that connector, stick that connector back together, and close the little clips up here. There we go. That one's engaged, and we'll just put this ribbon connector back in here. Now I know this unit's never been dropped because this is my own unit and I've had it since it was new. And it's never even been used as a portable device. I used to use it to make copies of tapes. And I think I took it in my car a few times to listen to music before I had that car DAT player. So let's just plug the power in and turn on the power and see what happens. Holy smoke. It opens. This thing hasn't opened with the eject in years. I used to have to fiddle fart around with pushing little levers because I'd hit the eject button and it would stick. God, don't tell me it was that simple. That is unbelievable. I'm going to grab a tape because I have a feeling this thing's going to work. So I'm back with making sure that the camera is recording. I don't get on-screen graphics on my big monitor that I've got in here that I can frame stuff up on, so I think I showed you this in the prior video, but I've got a nice big screen here that I can see what I'm doing. And this time I actually found a DVI to HDMI adapter cable, so that makes it really quite a good find, that TV. Okay, let's load this tape and push it all the way down and load. Volume. Well, oops, I hit the mute button on the speaker of the headphones. You can hear it. It's playing. I don't see the light working for the display. I really don't care about that. Let's try AMS. Where's AMS? It's on the front on here. Let's see if it finds the next track. There it goes. I'll zoom on this thing so you can see how this thing works. There, that's it. Yeah, it's working. Go to the next track. Find the next track. Sounds like the heads need to be cleaned on this thing. It hasn't been used in so long. I heard a bit of drop out there for a second. There's a bit more. But other than that, the sound quality off of DAT is just incredible. DAT is uncompressed digital tape format like a CD. Can operate at a higher resolution than the CD and can have substantially better sound if it's in that higher resolution than CD. But yeah, this machine is now working. You don't really see much of the workings on this because everything's shielded, right? The head drum is underneath here. And making sure that the guide posts are tight. You shouldn't move on these, but make sure that they haven't shifted anywhere over the years. I just tweaked the tracking. I just kind of eyeballed it by listening to the sound to see if the little lock screw can be tightened up. So we'll just eject the tape here. Or is eject? Oh, I gotta find the eject button on this thing. I gotta stop it, I guess, first, and then I can eject it. And the guide post will retract. I got a caution. Now this is the problem I was having with it before. It would, when I went to eject, oh, that opened that time. It might be just the switch is kind of dirty too. But that was one of the problems that I had with this thing going way back, was when I went to eject the tape, it would occasionally, it would do that. If I zoom in here, you can see the guide posts, the little head drum, just like the little head drum on the car player I was showing you. It's the same size of head drum. But this one here is not belt driven. This one actually has a motor on it. I'm just looking at the base of the guides to see if there's any lock screws on there, because one of those guide posts is not tight. Yes, there is a little lock screw on the side of it. I don't know if you can see it. I guess you probably can't see it there, but if I move this thing over just a bit on the side down in here, I don't know if you can see that. I guess you can't, but there's a tiny, tiny little screw. And I'm just going to get my even finer precision screwdriver and see if I can just tighten that up just a bit so that that post is at least held in place. Okay, we're back. I've got the super precision screwdriver here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, whether you're going to be able to see what I'm doing or not. I can see from my angle here. I just need more help to see what I'm doing. I'm using a big magnifying glass and I'm using reading glasses on top of that because this is very, very fine work. These things were built with the precision of a Swiss watch. Very, very, very fine screws. You can see how loose that is. I don't know if you can see it there or not, but that's not supposed to turn. The lock screw that holds that in place on the side here is come loose, so I have to kind of get in here and tighten that little lock screw up. So that this guidepost cannot rotate as easy as it was, because if it turns while you're playing your tape, the alignment will go out, and then you won't be able to put your tape back. So that one there is tight now. We'll put the tape back in and verify operation. That's loaded. I can see what's happened here. One of the guide pins has come undone below it. I can see the pin is not resting on the actual arm that moves it. So I don't want to even try and unload the thing right now, because I can see this little this little post is not lined up with the pin that it's supposed to ride on. It's actually come off of the arm. So I'm trying to get the arm back on here without. As what I'm concerned about is I don't want to run the mechanism too much with the I'm going to take the display out of the way here. We'll just lift that out of the way so I can see underneath this shield. I've spotted another problem. One of the press fit guides has come apart from its lower assembly. So we'll just peel the display out of the way for now. This should lift this bar out of the way with the flex cable for the display attached to it, like that. And then I should be able to take this head shield cover off, and that way I can access of course when things seem like they're going to come out, that's usually when they don't. There we go. Now I can access. Now I don't know if you can see down in here, but this guide post, you can probably see it there. This guide post here has come off of its pin, as has this other one. They've just let go, and they're not sitting on their keeper posts anymore. So we're going to just try and manipulate both of these back into place. That one there has gone back on. Now what about this other one? I need 2 screwdrivers to work on this. I pull the camera back a bit so you can see, because I don't know that you're able to see like I can from my angle. Move the camera over a little bit if I can. But the problem with the tripod is it's where I need to put my hand. Let's just see if we can move this over a little bit and you can see what I'm doing. Right down in here, this guide is dropped off of its control arm. So I'm just going to try and move the control arm back with one screwdriver slightly, and then pop the thing back in place with the other one. So there's the control arm. And I'm sorry you can't see this on the camera, because I have to get the angle right so that I can see what I'm doing here, to try and lift the one piece up and put it underneath the other, or lift the guide up and push the control arm underneath it and slide the guide over the top of it and pop it back in like that. There, now it's popped back in. So I can probably show you now what I just had to do on this thing is if you look down, I'll put the camera in a bit here. If you look down here, this guide assembly had jumped off of its control arm, and I had to reseat that pin back onto its post, and the same on this side here. These ones had dropped off, and I've now reseated them, and hopefully they will stay in place. We'll just run the mechanism through its pace here. If I can, I'm just going to power it up and see what happens. That's what happens when you get these old mechanisms, is that they can come apart. And it was a real common problem with the camcorders of the day too, where the mechanisms would just fall apart. Problem with mechanical devices, right? Okay, I hit the eject button and these should pull back and hopefully they won't fall apart. That's what happened before, is that they fell apart. There we go. And it ejects. Now normally these little pins here are held in place by their press fit, but what happens is they need to be secured with an adhesive like glue that keep the pins from falling apart, because if they fall apart once, they're going to fall apart again. Right? This was I remember VHS machines, this was a huge problem on them too back in the day. The mechanisms would just literally fall apart. Mitsubishi was terrible for that. Some of their early machines, the guides would just fall right out of the machines. So I'm going to try and press that on, and then we'll put a... There we go. Now it's popped back on. Now I think what I'll do now that that's popped on, I think it's on, is we'll put a little drop of crazy glue on there. I'm just going to run the mechanism through its operations first, just to make sure that everything's good. So we'll power it up. Make sure we don't get the caution message first. Okay, that's all clear. There's no warning messages there. Whoops, that was the wrong button. I turned it off. Let's open the cassette up, and we'll load the tape again. That works. Plug in the headphones, make sure we get music. Tracking's off, so we'll fix that. Okay, so we're working. I want to secure those guides so that they don't come apart again. And probably the best way I can secure those is to put a little drop of glue on them. And the best stuff that we've got is crazy glue. I want to make sure that the we still got an unloading problem. This thing had all along. This problem has been an ongoing issue with this thing for forever. it opens and then it sticks. But I want to secure those guides so that they don't fall apart. I'm going to take a piece of wire and I'm just going to use that as a needle dropper, because I don't want to drop that glue where I don't want it to go. You know what I mean? That would be a disaster. So we'll just put a little drop on the end of this, and then we'll take this and we'll just dab it on top of the guide post that I want to lock in place. It's easier said than done because it's hard to see. When the mechanism is in the unloaded mode, it is tough to see, but that's it there. There we go. I'll hold that one in place. And again, same for the other one over here, a little further in. If I can get a little more on there, it'd be better. Okay, that's probably enough. Close up my tube of crazy glue and put it back in the package for the next time I need one. And I just want to let this dry for a bit before I run the mechanism through its paces again. Okay, that ought to do it now. I've got the glue should be thoroughly dry on here now, so we'll just try loading this thing up again and see what happens. So there it is, it's loaded. We press play. There we go, it's playing. Stop, rewind. Rewind the tape back. As you can see, like a little VCR, the tape remains loaded. This is a good shot here. You can see what's going on here with that plate removed. Now if I eject the tape, it'll unthread the tape and it opens. Look at that. It's actually working now. This is what it's supposed to do. So to recap, I put a little bit of glue on the guideposts here to secure the guideposts. We'll just zoom the camera in here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but anyway, right down in here on that one, and the other one's over here. Turn it around, maybe you can see it a little better. Okay, so here's what I put a little drop of glue on this pin here, because that had come off, it had lifted. And the same with this one over here. That one had lifted as well, which caused caused the linkage to drop down and it would jam on the mechanism. That was one of the problems with this thing. The other problem was on the bottom of the unit. This this connector had come apart on its own. That connector had popped open and it had lost connection, lost communications between the system boards. So there wasn't really a lot wrong with this thing, which is good because this is a good little unit. It's nice to have options. It's nice to have the equipment working. And this is basically a collector's item. You know, it's from an era gone past, and this is the first generation of super high quality audio recording that we had for home use and professional use. I mean, this unit here was not generally designed for personal home use. This was designed for musicians so they could record in the field, for recording live performances where they could just plug it right into the soundboard and get a CD quality recording. That's the whole reason that these little professional quality DAT machines were even developed. But it's just very cool technology. I figured I'd share this with you. These are quite rare these days, and I now have the whole collection of Sony DAT machines. I have the portable DAT that you see here. I have a home DAT machine, which you've already seen the repair video for it. I have an ES DAT machine, and I've got the car player, which I showed you in a previous video, which I'll have to get a belt for it because I used an elastic band, but that didn't work very well. But other than that, it works. And I guess I should probably turn the sound down on this thing here so that you can hear me but not the music, because you know how YouTube tends to get about even radios playing in the background. Anyway, that's the DAT machine. I'm going to reassemble this thing back together, and we'll show you what it looks like once I get the thing back together. It's one of my collection of Sony. As you can see, I've been a Sony audio and video fan over the years, and I've got samples of a lot of their equipment. I've got some beta machines, and I've got 8mm cameras and high 8 cameras. No, I don't so much have them anymore, except for ones that people have given me, but digital 8, mini DV, HDV, and now what I'm using now is a flash-based camera. But I've been a fan of Sony stuff over the years. I've got some other vintage stuff I'm going to show you down the road. I've got an old ICF 2010, which is a digital shortwave radio, digitally tuned with synchronous detectors, and I've got an old transistor 6, which goes back to the 1960s. It was one of the first, if not the first, all transistor radio that Sony sold. I've got a Walkman 1, the very first Walkman. I'll show you that on a video at some future date too. Maybe it needs some work, maybe it doesn't. A Walkman 11, a Walkman F16, which has got AM stereo on it. I have also, I think it's a CFD, I'm going to go out on a limb, CFD 6000, which is the AM stereo ghetto blaster. And I have the AM stereo cassette car stereo as well. I say I've got quite the collection of Sony gear, and I tried to get a sample of some of the more unique pieces. And I was able to do so because for many years I worked at a Sony dealer. So Sony would bring out all these gadgets that, you know, wouldn't sell in very high volumes, and at the end of the line they were looking for someone with sucker stamped on their forehead. So I was able to buy stuff at a pretty deep discount, like this unit. I was able to buy stuff at quite a discount, so I've got a fair collection of Sony gear that I will keep, just because some of it is pretty unique, and they were ahead of the curve in the technology. This is back when Sony was innovating. Well, as much as I'd like to be putting this thing together at this point in time, I'm finding that I'm actually going to tear it down a little more, because when I was going through the eject cycle, it stuck once again. So I'm thinking there's something maybe in the bottom of the mechanism that is getting hung up. So I want to take this circuit board out and take a look and see what might be going on underneath here. Now these boards here, these are flex boards that connect the boards together. So there's a process that we have to go through to take these all out. I don't want to damage anything. And there's a lot of intricate, very fine wires and flexible boards here that are kind of stuck together. Pull this camera back out here a bit. So let's get the battery terminals removed. And now I can take the display board and swing it out of the way. And that lifts back to this other board here. And then there are a couple more boards that are actually connected to this one. So once we remove the screws from the circuit board, I'm hoping that the board will just unplug and I can tip it to the side and see what's going on to the mechanism below it. I've never taken one of these units apart to this degree before, as I've never worked on one of these units before. And I was hoping that I was never going to have to. This is pretty tedious stuff. I'm just looking for any screws that may be attaching the board. At least the wires are marked though on the circuit board. Now this circuit board should lift out without too much trouble. Oh, there's one more back here that has to come undone. Get that one out of the way. It should lift out, I'm hoping. Looks like there's probably an encoder switch right here. And I just basically want to see if there's anything loose that could be causing it to stick. Well, after taking the whole mechanism apart, what I did find, and I don't know whether this is what was causing it to intermittently not eject, but I found a connector that wasn't closed. Kind of like the other one I found, like this one, that wasn't clamped down. So I'm just going to put it back together and see whether it will operate. I hate working on these little things because they're so bloody small. You know, it's the technology is very cool that they've been able to make something this small, but to tell you the truth, it's really a pain in the ass to work on. I've never regretted giving up the repair business when I had to work on small stuff like this for customers. And I close it like that, and then this other piece went in behind the battery. Kind of went in like that, and then there's a couple screws that held this plate in place. And then there was this other cover that goes in here that this little piece here actually fits in here and goes underneath here, and what it does is this is to clear any static electricity that could hang up the tape when the tape is being loaded. What it does is when you close the tape compartment, finding the right screws for it because they're different size screws for different things. When you close down the tape compartment, a little pin right here activates a little lever which moves a little plastic arm across the front, so that if any static electricity causes the tape to stick when the lid is being opened, because the cassettes, the lid has to open like this and it flips the tape door open. If the tape were to stick, static electricity caused the tape to stick to the tape door, it could eat the tape. So there's a little plastic, I don't know if you can see it here or not, we'll zoom the camera in so you can see it. But when you see the little arm right here, the little plastic arm, this bracket, this little catch here, as you lower it down, that's just to clear any tape that may stick to the lid to separate it from the lid so that it can properly thread. Again, the attention to detail that went into these things is just amazing. They thought of all these little things that could possibly go wrong, that could cause this thing to fail, and they tried to make them as reliable as possible. Obviously, when you're dealing with something as mechanical as essentially a micro miniature VCR, and that's basically what these things are. They got the workings of a VCR, but they're working with a 4mm wide tape. So it's there's a lot that can possibly go wrong in operation. I remember talking to an old engineer friend at the time when these things were out, and he was laughing. He thought they were a joke because of the amount of mechanical stuff that went on. Of course, he at the time was he was a big fan of DCC, digital compact cassette, which of course that format never really got off the ground, but that was a competing format at the time when DAT was first brought to market. DCC was the competing format. And this fellow that I knew, he was a big fan of DCC. I was never a big fan of DCC myself because of the compression that it used. Although compression is a fact of life now in the MP3 world, but back in the 80s, the thought of using audio compression was that was a dirty word. At least for audiophiles, it certainly was. Okay, so I've got the display reattached. That other bar, that goes across this side. Now that I remember, it went across on, I believe it was across here. Yes, it is. It goes across the circuit board on the back side here and held down this plate. So we'll just reinstall that. This thing's starting to take shape again, as you can see. So that's that metal plate back in place. We'll put the side panel back on here to hold in the battery cover. Well, it opens. That's a good sign. We'll load the tape and see if it plays. I would say that it does. So let's put the thing together and see if it works. There we go. It opened. Okay, we're going to put the bottom on it and put the top back on it and see if it works. I'm running out of memory here, so I kind of got to speed things up a bit. Okay, we're getting the thing back together. So you can see the top cover will just fit on here when I'm done. It goes on like that. But I'm just going to do one final test on this thing before I put the final cover on. Close it down, load, and play. And there it goes, volume all the way up. I can skip ahead like 8 tracks. light actually does work. It's an electroluminescent panel, but it's kind of bright in here. So with all the lights on, I can't see it. But if I turn out the lights, which I'll do so you can see this thing. So we'll kill some of the lights here. And I'll turn on the light. There, whoops. There, now do you see it lighting up? So the electroluminescent panel actually does work. It's just it's not very bright because it's an electroluminescent panel. So with all the lights that I've got on here in the shop, you don't see it. But there's my portable DAT player. It's functional. I pressed the wrong button. Let's rewind. Rewind the tape back to the beginning. You can see the ID comes up at the beginning of every track. There we go. It worked. And that's my portable DAT player. Now normally I didn't keep screws on this thing because I've had some trouble with it in the past where at times it won't eject the tape. So I'm going to keep it like that without the screws in, because with the screws in it, it's impossible to get the thing apart. You actually have to have it open to be able to get the screws out of the front here. And if the thing sticks shut, it's really, really tough to try and get the thing open. So I'm not going to put the screws in the front cover here just because I may need to pop the top off it there to get a tape out whenever I use this thing, which probably won't be that much, but at least it works, it's functional, and I have myself another DAT player, and you guys got to see what this thing looks like inside and how intricate it is. I hope you enjoyed my vintage Sony portable DAT player repair, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye for now.